Let's talk about what do you see as the role of prophecy in the church? Prophecy's taken a bit of a hit lately, one way and another, what with making predictions about the American election, which might not have come to pass. Perhaps there were some things said about COVID that never came to pass, or maybe did. Um, have we got prophecy wrong in the church?
I think number one, it's in most Western churches we have become very acclimatized to listening to and being led by teacher type people who are very clear. 3-point sermons, lifestyle stuff that you can really apply into your everyday, or note upon note theology. But if you read the Bible, and if you read the prophetic books, Ezekiel, Daniel, Jeremiah, Isaiah, or even skip over to the New Testament, Revelation, and compare them to the teaching epistles, you will go, well, the prophets are like they're on drugs half the time. I mean, it's crazy. There's rivers, there's eagles, there's scrolls, there's all sorts of things flying around. Prophets are unusual. And so most Western churches are not very well equipped, even pastors, I would say, to understand or know how to put in place prophetic ministry. Prophecy isn't just foretelling. It's also forthtelling the will of God and the purposes of God, but it's also bringing power for change. So it encourages and builds and develops the church to be what it should be. Now, obviously, where it often gets its worst rap, I would say, is when you go into predictive prophecy rather than empowering prophecy. So, straight up, should Trump have had a second term or not? Well, I've done a little bit this with I have an online learning community called The Tribe, and we do a lot of prophetic training in it. And we've gone into why prophets get it wrong on things like this. I mean, as soon as you become very emotionally engaged in an issue, for instance, if you've already visited the White House, you've been there, you now have a personal investment, it's very easy for those lines between emotion, personal investment and preference, and God to become quite a blurred thing. And so it's very easy for emotion. And even if you feel passionately about your nation, sometimes we can get a little bit mixed up between political issues and then the will of God. I mean, I think people are amazed even today that when Jesus turned up, he didn't deal with the politics of the Roman occupation much. In fact, I do a whole series of teaching on how God used the Roman occupation to accelerate the move of the gospel in the early church. And so a negative political situation which was traumatic and tragic, was actually used by God to propel the gospel further. And you'll often find that God's men and women are next to the seat of power, not always in the seat of power. It's Daniel, it's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, it's Joseph. And so it's a very complex area to try and prophesy into. And I really admire those prophets that went for it, but have willingly gone, you know what, think we got that wrong, and let's just come clean and say that. On the COVID issue, similarly, with prophecy, we all prophesy in part. In other words, you're going to get parts right and parts wrong. And some of what has come out, for instance, one of them was that we would be in the peak of a plague during Passover, was for about 15 or 16 countries at least highly accurate. Whether some went on to prophesy that it would end by Passover, that's a very different thing. I haven't heard those prophecies, but I think they have been said. But that never, I did a whole series of stuff with about 15 prophets in May, and none of them were saying that, other than that there would, they'd prophesied historically that there would be a peak of plague over Passover. And but prophecy's messy. It's not teaching. We want people to go, okay, in 3 easy steps, tell us what's going to happen. And actually, when a prophet turns around and starts talking about doves and fires and trumpets and tidal waves, you go, no, please talk in English. But read the prophetic books in the Bible. They're not teachers, so we've got to learn to interpret them better and to fit them around other wisdom too,
Yeah,
Difficult one, complex, even now.
Yes, definitely.